Now, journalism is under threat from the fake news industry chasing content creation. This has come up in the 21st edition of the World Press Freedom Index, compiled by Reporters Without Borders. It sheds light on major changes brought by political, social and technological upheavals. The biggest index falls for 2023 have been on the African continent. Now, let's discuss this further with Makhudu Sefara. He is the Media Freedom Chair at the South African National Editors Forum. Makhudu, thank you very much for coming into studio on a Sunday.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So it says that fake news is the biggest threat to journalism around the world. But there are some countries that are doing well. And these countries, according to the index, are Ireland, Denmark, Norway. So what are the Norwegians, etc., doing right that we're not doing right? I mean, they also have access to social media and content creators.
Yes. So there's two major things that impact media freedom. So it's first the political environment, but that too is also related to the second part. And the second part is, crime and corruption, the actors in that ecosystem. So what you tend to see is that media freedom improves where democracy improves or increases. And where democracy increases, you then see a concomitant rise in the observance of the rule of law and that type of thing. So those two things impact how a country then performs generally with media freedom. What those countries have gotten right is getting the political environment right. Now, with that, it means that the laws in the countries, in those countries, allow members of the media to do the kind of things that we do. It means that there's a heightened level of consciousness in terms of which people in the political space interact with people in the media in a way that encourages media freedom. So you don't have one of your colleagues went to an EFF event and
it was actually a government event.
A government event in the city of Joburg, Slindel.
Yes.
And the head of the department that had that function just happened to be a member of the EFF. How she is treated at an event like that, then gives you the connect between what you have in the political space and the concomitant increase or decrease in the space within which members of the media operate. Now those guys, the Nordic countries largely have kind of quote unquote colonized the top of this list of countries that are doing well in media freedom.
Yeah.
And partly it's because of that. But there's, of course, I mean, the other factors that you mentioned, like fake media, fake news, and the implications of AI on what we should believe or not. They are affected by that. But when you're judging them, you need to look at what they are doing to make sure that the environment is right for journalists, whether they are complicit in the suffocation of the space and whether they are sucking out the oxygen out of media operations or not.
So at the end of the day, it all comes back to policy and politicians. Yes.
So there's that, but there's also some other, sub-factors that influence other things.
Yeah.
Like in our country, for example. So the picture globally is that countries that seem to embrace democracy and the rule of law are seeing this opening up of space for freedom of expression, which is not a media thing, which is, everyone in a country, people are able to freely express themselves and participate in political activity without there being, but where you start looking at some detail elsewhere, you then find in other countries like ours that we have the laws right.
Yes.
But the implementation, not even the implementation, the application of these laws sometimes it's a problem. Yeah. So you'd have a situation where some government people will just decide not to respond to a question.
Oh, yes.
published a piece today about the NPA and the Nulani case. Part of what I say in there is that the NPA has decided that we're not going to answer questions about how we got this case really so wrong. We'll call a press conference on a date that we determine, and only then you who have answers must just make sure you're available on the day, and you come there, you ask your...
Then you'll get your answers.
Yeah. But
isn't that also a precedence that was set basically, if I could say that, basically by our current president? Because if you look at the family meetings, for instance, the fact that we haven't been able to engage with him in so long, and every time we're just called to a press briefing where it's very seldom that we can ask questions. The last time he reshuffled his cabinet, we couldn't ask questions. We just listened to who the new ministers are, and he walked right out.
It's a major problem. It is something that we must deal with. It is something that, as a South African National Editors Forum, we've raised with the presidency. We've said, listen, at the beginning of your Tumamina stuff, you were engaging, you were available. You know, things have now happened when you got comfortable at the union buildings, and you know, you're addressing us. You are communicating to us. There's no engagement that is meaningful, that helps us understand the issues, that helps us communicate, that advances ordinary people's rights to information. Because, you know, you just arrive, you know, say whatever you want to say, and we must make do. We must say, this is what it means. You know, let's get this expert, you know, but the president and them can do a better job at engaging. And this is not just happening in the media space. You know, people in business too are complaining. They're saying, we get to functions. The president, for example, says at the mining indaba in Cape Town, that business must stop shouting from the top of their voices and their ivory towers. They must, you know, they must put their shoulders to the wheel. We must build this country together. And meanwhile, business is saying, no, Mr. President, we have been putting our shoulder to the wheel. We just don't get a platform to say to you privately in a room, this is what we have been doing.
Our ideas
you know, all we get is an opportunity to come and sit and be addressed by you. And after that, you know, it's cocktails and whatever, and then we leave.
Left. So Makhudu, I just have one more question for you.
Yes.
You know, without us sounding like this conversation is, we saying that there's no, we should let go of the freedom of expression, etc. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. But how do we balance, you know, the fact that, yes, you have a right to express yourself freely, but you cannot also use that right to trump on the rights of other people's freedom of privacy, freedom probably of not being labeled a certain way in public. How do we balance this?
No. I mean, it's a very important point. But I mean, interestingly, in our country, insofar as the laws are concerned about that, government has come to the party. Surprise, surprise. So, you know, they've put together laws, whether, you know, you want to talk popia or, you know, there's a raft of laws that have been put together to make sure that the space is regulated, that you can't just say things. In addition, of course, there's the traditional and long-established defamation, this and that, and there's the press council that can also raise in, or the BCCA and other structures. So there's regulations there, but also as SANEF, we have also said, you know, where members of the media put their foot wrong, or, you know, they do things that then violate other people's rights, you know, we have very strong and very honest and open conversations to say, you know, guys, why do we allow these things to happen? These things should not happen. What happened? Then we get explanation. Then we say, but other than the incident, just one last thing. Other than the incident, how do we make sure that this thing that just happened does not recur? And then we develop some mechanism, and then we share it broadly with the members.
But in those discussions that you have with different bodies and organizations, some of them government, etc., do you feel as though SANEF actually has a way of changing the narrative? Are you listened to? For instance, this is not the first time that SANEF has released a statement saying, you know, communicators in government should not bar journalists from asking questions to them or their ministers.
Yeah.
They still do it. They've been doing it.
It's hits and misses. So, for example, we would meet with the Minister of Justice, we did in the February Council, at which we raised issues with him, and he would then say, look, these issues that you're raising are genuine, and I agree with you. We need to establish this and make sure that the other people that you deal with are on the same page with us, blah blah. But it is what he does when he leaves the SANEF meeting. It is the other people that he works with that must make sure that what we agree on is what actually is implemented, and that runs across. It's not just a justice and courts thing. It's something that you can relate to the police and the various other departments. But we are having those conversations, and we are starting to drill down to the detail to say, who else in the administration of government? Is it the DGs and the people who report to the DGs that we need to have these conversations with? Because this press freedom and this thing that we are pushing, it's not just about the media. It is about the citizens' right to access credible information, which they must use for many different things, including when next they go for the polls in 2024.
Well, thank you very much, Makhudu. I think, it's a whole lot that puts journalism under threat in our country, at least. Even newsrooms themselves, and the juniorization in the newsroom, maybe training people better as well in the newsroom. So I think it's a whole bigger scheme of things that is a problem. Thank you so much for coming into studio on a Sunday. Media Freedom Chair at the South African National Editors Forum, Makhudu Sefara.